Welcome everyone to the monthly meeting of the Knoxville, Knox County Planning Commission. I'm Tim Hill, Chair of the Planning Commission, and I'll be conducting today's meeting. Assisting me today is the Strategic Planning and Communications Manager for Knoxville, Knox County Planning, Allie Ketron, and the Planning Commission Attorney, Tasha Blakeney. I would like to call this meeting to order, and I'll now ask Mr. DeArmond to call the roll.
Commissioner Huber? Here. Commissioner Browning?
Here.
Commissioner Levinson? Here. Commissioner Boyer? Commissioner Barger?
Here.
Commissioner Overton? Commissioner Perez? Here. Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Higgins?
Here.
Commissioner Biggs?
Here.
Commissioner Daly has informed us she will be absent. Commissioner Gill? Here. Commissioner Midas? Here. Commissioner Adams? Here. Commissioner Hill?
Here.
That's 12 present, sir.
Thank you, Mr. DeArmond. Participating today are planning commissioners as well as planning staff and various representatives of city and county agencies. The planning commissioners are citizens from the city and county who have been appointed by either the city mayor or county mayor. We receive no salary and volunteer our time as a service to the community. Now a word about how discussion will take place. After each item is called, I will read the staff's recommendation. On certain items, I'll call on staff to comment. At this time, the applicant may address the commission or defer his or her opening remarks and allow any opposition to speak first. The applicant and those in support of the applicant will be given a total of 5 minutes to speak. I'll then ask for other comments from the floor. The opposition will also be given a total of 5 minutes to speak. If either side wishes to have an opportunity for rebuttal, you'll need to reserve time from your allotted 5 minutes. Applicants and citizens who registered to participate and are attending the meeting in person will be asked to come to the podium and share their name and address for the record where their item is heard. Those who have registered to speak online do not need to sign in at the podium. If you'd like to speak on an agenda item and have not yet registered to do so, please raise your hand when the item is read into the record. I will then indicate when it's time for you to speak, and you can approach the podium at that time. You'll be asked to sign in at the podium, as well as state your name and address for the record. If the Planning Commission decision on that item is appealed and we need to notify you, we cannot do so without your name and address. The Planning Commission may grant additional time for presentation of information. Speakers should limit their remarks to the facts of the case and should avoid repeating comments that have been previously presented to the Planning Commission. Because of the number of items we have before us, groups in favor or opposed to an item have been asked to appoint a spokesperson to represent them. If you have any items that you would like to make part of the record, please submit those documents to knoxplanning.org/share. Please identify the file number and meeting date in your submittal. Hope all of you have reviewed the agenda package from Planning's website. In addition to the agenda, there's information on the website related to how today's meeting will be conducted, as well as correspondence on individual cases. Many of the items we vote on require further action by City Council or the County Commission. For matters that are forwarded to the City Council for final action, the applicant or their representative should be present at the meeting at which the request will be considered. For matters forwarded to County Commission for final action, particularly rezoning requests, the applicant or their representative must, and I repeat, must be present at the meeting at which the request will be considered, or the case will be at minimum postponed. Applicants will be notified of the meeting date. If you have any questions regarding the meeting date or process, please contact planning staff. Today's meeting will be conducted in order of the agenda. Please stand as you are able as Vice Chair Huber leads us in the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father, bless this community. Help us to ensure the decisions made this afternoon are fair, legal, and in the best interest of the total community. As always, keep us mindful of the needs of others, especially those who are in sorrow, need, sickness, or any other adversity. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda are the postponement and withdrawal list. I'll read these separately. Under automatic postponements, item 11, Homestead Land Holdings. Item 38, Homestead Land Holdings. Item 43, Zero Broom Road. Item 46, Car Connection Complete Auto Repair. Item 52, Calvary Chapel of Knoxville. Under automatic withdrawals, we have item 32, City of Knoxville. Item 48, Jonah Pruitt. Item 50, Primrose, Knoxville. Item 54, Knoxville, Knox County Planning. Under 30-day postponements, I'll need a motion and a second for these after I read. Do we have any recusals? Item 41, Monterey Oak Subdivision. Item 42, Pleasant Village Subdivision. Item 53, City of Knoxville. Are there any other requests to postpone items?
Chairman Hill, Ben Mullins, 550 West Main Street. I'd like to add agenda item 10 to the postponement list, please.
Thank you, Councilor Mullins.
And David Harbin at 4334 Paper Mill Drive. I'd like to add item number 44 to the postponement list for 30 days.
44, thank you, Mr. Harbin.
Thank you.
Excuse me, my name's Alan Lay. I live in the Timbercrest subdivision. I had understood item 44 would also be postponed.
That's correct,
Okay.
yes. I'm assuming both of those requests are for 30-day postponements? Okay. Do we have any others? Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to approve as read, adding item number 10 on Carnes Valley Drive and number 44 on Yosemite Trail.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Huber, seconded by Commissioner Browning. Seeing no lights, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Under 60-day postponements, we have item 21, the farm at Beaver Ridge. Item 24, Doug Justice Jelly Bean Properties. Item 34, Maddox Construction. Are there any other requests to postpone for 60 days? If not, Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to approve as read.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Huber, seconded by Commissioner Browning for 60-day postponements. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no 90-day postponements. We have no withdrawals from the table. No, we do. We do have one withdrawal from the table, Chad Wilhite. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve as read.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Huber, seconded by Commissioner Browning regarding withdrawals from the table. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no tablings. And we have one item to be removed from the table, which is R. Bentley Marlowe. All right.
Is that number two?
That is, I only have the case of 8A23OA.
That is two, number two on the table.
Okay. All right. On to the consent list. I'm sorry. Let's get a motion on the being removed from the table.
Motion to approve removing number 2 of the tabled items.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Huber, seconded by Commissioner Levinson, for our Bentley Marlowe case to be removed from the table. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll address the consent list, which is composed of items marked with a C. These items are considered non-controversial and are voted on all at once in order to save time. Items are listed in the order they appear on the agenda. Please listen carefully. Once an item is approved as part of the consent list, there will be no further discussion on it. So if it's approved on the consent list, there'll be no further discussion. I've watched people sit through this whole meeting before not realizing that. So please listen carefully. Item 2, approval of September 12, 2024 agenda. Item 3, approval of August 8, 2024 minutes. Item 5, final plat of Neely Landing. Item 6, final plat of the Haven at Hardin Valley Phase 1C, formerly known as the Highlands at Hardin Valley. Item 7, Ryan Hickey. Item 9, Vera Lynn McDaniel. Item 13, Nancy Cox. Item 14, Stefan Clare. Item 17, Blakely Dance Pavlis. Item 18, Homestead Land Holdings. Item 23, 717 West Governor John Sevier Highway. Item 26, Stuart Anderson. Item 27, Justin Harvey. Item 28, Adam Wilson. Item 29, Thomas Wilson and Jennifer Wilson. Item 30, LKM Properties. Item 31, Ujesh Patel. Item 33, City of Knoxville. Item 35, Barnes Capital Management. Item 36, Jim Fritz, Apex Bank. Item 39, Joe Petrie. Item 40, Benjamin C. Mullins. Item 47, Herschel Jackson. Item 49, Liberty General Construction. Item 51, Andy Stahl. Item 55, City of Knoxville. Are there any requests to remove an item from the consent list? Do we have any recusals? Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve consent list as read.
Second. We have a motion by Vice Chair Huber to approve the consent list, seconded by Commissioner Browning. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I would like to pause for just a minute and would like to read a proclamation. Former Vice Chair Uten is with us today, and this is in regard to his service. Knoxville, Knox County Planning has a long history of thoughtful, considerate direction provided by its Volunteer Planning Commission, which was continued by the service of Commissioner Chris Uten. And whereas Chris Uten joined the Planning Commission in 2016, attending more than 100 meetings and providing leadership to this group as Vice Chair during his term. And whereas Commissioner Uten has helped shape the landscape of Knox County through his work in commercial property development, LEED certification from the Green Building Certification Institute, service on the board of Knoxville Chamber, and as the board chair of Visit Knoxville, and involvement as a planning commissioner. And whereas he is known to listen to and work with the community, ensuring quality, responsible, and sustainable growth in Knoxville, Knox County, he has always provided a level-headed and diplomatic voice on the commission. And whereas Chris's ability to balance perspectives may be connected to his time on staff with planning years ago, giving him the unique vantage point as both a staff member and a planning commissioner. His procedural knowledge, combined with his experience as a developer, has made him a strong voice and asset to the commission. When a third way was needed, he could often see an avenue that others could not. And whereas we are forever grateful for the countless hours Chris spent in the main assembly room and are thrilled to give him that time back to spend with his family, friends, and new endeavors. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Knoxville, Knox County Planning Commission and planning staff express their gratitude for Chris Hooten's contributions to the community through good land use planning and dedicated public service. And former Vice Chair Chris Hooten asked me just to say nice things about him today, but quite frankly, that's all that I could think of for former Vice Chair Hooten. And I also considered him more of a co-chair than a vice chair because he did some very important work that often people didn't see. It was many times behind the scenes. So let's give a round of applause to our former vice chair, Chris Hooten. If you'll come up. Appreciate you so much. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I think Commissioner Browning was expecting a speech there, Vice Chair Hooten. Where'd you go?
He's already reclaiming that time.
All right. Okay. All right. On to agenda item number 8. The applicant, Michael Shaddle, location south side of Daybreak Drive, northeast of Middlebrook Pike, .98 acres. Present zoning is agricultural. Zoning requested is low-density residential, and existing land use is single-family residential. This will require one motion. The staff recommendation is to deny low-density residential zone because it is not consistent with the Knox County Comprehensive Plan implementation policies and does not meet the criteria for a rezoning. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
All right. Do we have opposition? Seeing no opposition, you may proceed if you would like.
Okay. My name's Michael Shaddle, and this is Aaron Kuntz. He's also the co-owner. He's gonna speak.
Yeah, Aaron Kuntz. My name, Aaron, Michael, and we are owners of 9510 Daybreak. I'm a local general contractor as well as a licensed real estate agent. Mike is a surveyor. We came across this property a couple months back. It was a distressed property that a friend of a friend gave us the opportunity to step in and check it out. We chose to buy it. It was a tough situation for the family. We chose to buy it, recognizing there was some opportunity with it. And so what we are looking to do is subdivide the back half of the lot off. And by doing that, when we were kind of processing through this whole search, we realized that it was actually falling in accordance with the Knox County Comprehensive Future Land Use Plan, as you can probably see up here. So the why, a couple of different reasons why we're wanting to do this. Number one, opportunity, yes. But the biggest thing, as a real estate agent and GC in the area, obviously we're all well aware of a shortage in housing in the area, both rental and ownership. So this was an opportunity for us to add to that and to bless another family as well with another home in that particular area. Hardin Valley being a very well-desired area as well. So that was one. Again, it lined up with that Knoxville Future Land Use Plan. To us, it seemed pretty clear. Was a great opportunity as well. So we felt like we were in compliance with that as well. And then honestly, it's just as small business owners ourselves, it gave us the opportunity as well, not only to bless another family by adding another home to Knoxville, but also to put food on the table for our families as well. So it was a win-win, it felt like, overall. So the how, we've got a couple of different options. These are kind of in preferential order, realistically. Option one, as you can see on the map, we are next to a neighbor right there to the east of us. There is a driveway that accesses Ball Camp Pike right there next to us. And our goal would be to actually utilize an easement with those particular neighbors and capitalizing on the access to Ball Camp Pike. We've established that relationship already with those particular neighbors, and I've had great conversations and built that relationship up with them over the last couple of months as well. So that would be ideal, and the option number one. Option two would be that we utilize our own lot on Daybreak and use access to Daybreak as a driveway means to the subdivided lot in the back. And then option three, right there to the west of us, we were made aware aware that there is a developer that owns that property that has plans to put some type of, I believe it was high-density resident, whatever it is, something like that. And we had considered subdividing it off and selling it to him as well. Obviously, that one is not the ideal choice, but that was one of the options as well. Our goal would be to subdivide, build, and have access utilizing that easement to Ball Camp Pike. So we would greatly appreciate your approval.
Thank you. Commission? All right. Commissioner Higgins?
I know that on Tuesday, there was some discussion about this in relationship to the staff's recommendation being tied to the access road. I'm curious, two questions, I guess, for staff. One, would it affect staff's recommendation if the access was coming from Ball Camp? And two, if there's a possibility to make a approval conditional on that access coming from Ball Camp. So can't remember whose case this is, but Whitney, I guess.
Whitney, Ms. Warner?
Yes, we did discuss with the applicant different ways to access. As of right now, their only access is on Daybreak. They haven't platted to have other access. We didn't discuss conditioning access, though.
During the discussion of this item, our main concern was Daybreak. It's an unstriped road. It's not it's unstriped and only 16 feet wide, so it doesn't meet the criteria within the comprehensive plan for additional dwelling units. And even though this would only be one, our concern was that ripple effect. And given that, if we took that, I forget whether it's option 1, 2, or 3, but if we did have a condition to have it accessed off of that PR up to 12 dwelling units an acre fronting on Ball Camp Pipe, that removes that concern that we had. So I think we would be willing to recommend approval for that based on that condition.
Okay. And does the applicant have a comment related to that? If the commission conditioned it based on what we just discussed?
I think we would be willing to do that.
My only question is in consideration with that future land use plan, being that our property is fully enveloped in that future land use plan to be able to do something like this, even just possibly for clarity to understand. I know what some of the comments were, I believe in the emails, were setting a precedence, and totally understand that. Just trying to understand, I guess, why, if we are fully enveloped in that land use plan, why it might not be recommended for clear approval, just out of curiosity.
Sure. So some of the criteria for rezonings are within the plan, and that's what we as staff are beholden to. So some of those, the usual ones that we looked at before the comprehensive plan was whether it was in character with the area, whether it met the criteria within the zoning ordinance. And while we do still look at those, there's additional criteria now within the plan, and one of those is infrastructure. So that's why we're looking at roads in a way that we had not been before the plan. So this is all fairly new. I think everyone's still getting used to it.
Okay, that's helpful.
Is there any way you could pull up the other map that shows SMR on it? We use this map that was on KGIS when we were looking at it, and it's only, and if you zoomed out a little bit, only our property is fully encased by the SMR zone. And so that was kind of, I think, what Aaron was getting at, is that, like, if it was setting precedents, it seemed like engineering said we'd be okay with 1 to 2 extra subdivisions coming off of Daybreak, and they were concerned with us setting precedents, and it just seemed like, well, only our property was fully encased in that. So I don't know. I think that's what Aaron was getting at, and that's what we've talked about.
Yeah.
Any other comments, Ms. Porcher?
Again, we were just concerned more with the ripple effect. So if you rezone yours and it adds one lot, then the property next to you, and then the next to you, and all of a sudden that unstriped 16-foot wide road is accommodating much more traffic. And we were concerned about potential safety hazards regarding that.
And so even if they weren't in the SMR zone, they still can rezone, or?
Yeah, so the SMR place type, it's the future land use map. That's one of the considerations that we look at. And then the infrastructure is another. So it's not just one particular criteria. There's like several bullet points that we look at. So the SMR is definitely one piece. It's a very important piece, but it's not the only piece. So, yeah.
Commissioner Overton?
Yeah, the only comment I really have here is I I agree with the idea that, yeah, let's look at what the road is and let's look at the development and all that. So for example, if we were talking about the property that this immediately adjoins to, that's I think zoned for less than 12 an acre, and its only access was on Daybreak Drive, to me, I'd be like, yeah, okay, we're looking at a road that's too small for this. But when we're looking at individual lot sizes, staff's report indicates that this lot is so much smaller that we're really only talking about 1 or 2 houses max, which is what, like, on average, people have 2 cars, maybe. So we're talking about, what, 4 cars? So to me, I don't think this would set a precedent, because if we're looking at a bigger lot right next door, and they asked for 6 units an acre, and wait, this is still a 16-foot road, it's a completely different conversation than this smaller lot size talking about 1 or 2 units max. And then just on a broader scale, if you zoom out, which you don't have to, but like, this is kind of like, it's this weird kind of unzoned, I thought of it like a donut. And so another goal of the plan is promoting connectivity, and to me, like, maybe Daybreak Drive should be improved at some point. I mean, it's right on Ball Camp Elementary. You've got Carnes High School is to the north, just a few, I mean, probably less than a mile, I don't know. It's right near commercial and stuff. And so I just, for now, I think the consideration of this property on a micro level, we're talking about 1 or 2 units, that's not that many cars on the road. But then I think on a long-term scale, if this comes back with a big property, yeah, let's not approve 12 units an acre on a tiny road, but maybe the transportation department or somebody can consider Daybreak Drive as maybe a good access point to connect these kind of circular communities we got going on. So that's all I have to say.
Commissioner Adams.
It seems like, if I'm tracking correctly, that one of those options, I forget their numbers now, but we have a route forward for the applicant that meets the criteria of the planning staff recommendation, but also allows them to have the access that they need. It was a conditional approval. Can someone just restate what that would be?
The applicant put forth the option to connect to the PR at 12 dwelling units an acre property that's adjacent to it to the west via an easement, if I'm understanding correctly.
To the east.
Oh, I'm sorry, to the east, okay. Either way, they're connecting to a property that would be accessed off of Shad Road, Ball Camp Pike, instead of off of Daybreak.
And so that's a route forward that the applicant could still accomplish what they are trying to accomplish, and the plan could stay uncompromised.
That's correct.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Just a clarification on that. You had also mentioned the other property with the driveway. I guess it's 8747 Ball Camp. Is that who you said you've been speaking with, that neighbor as well?
Yeah, we met them a couple weeks ago, and we've reached out to them. I mean, ideally, we'd like it to be unconditional. I mean, we would accept it because, I mean, we still have to work out that deal with them. But that is what our preference would be, to connect that. But
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I do agree with Commissioner Overton, but I think the struggle with the staff, and I might ask Director Snowden, what's the likelihood of that road ever being, I know there's a whole lot, you've got a big list of improvements and road widenings to do. I mean, what's the likelihood of Daybreak ever being improved?
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Huber. It would be very unlikely, that road, it does serve, I think there is we've actually widened a portion of it to the west of these folks' property because there is some school staging that occurs there. I think the buses come in off of Shad, and some of the parents come in from Daybreak. So we have widened a portion of it due to the complaints about the narrowness of it and the queuing of traffic. But beyond that, I would very seriously doubt us investing any money in it just because of the limited transportation value.
Understood. So I guess if there was a motion to be made, I would probably leave it more generic, saying as long as access to Ball Camp could be provided, and leave it a little looser to give them the options of accessing that.
Commissioner Higgins.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with staff that with this new plan, if we are to make infrastructure part of the consideration, we definitely want to make that part of the consideration on all cases, and don't want to set a precedent, and even with something small like this. So I'm going to make a motion, but I guess first, I will ask the applicants, would you guys rather postpone 30 days and get something figured out before we make it conditional? Would that help you guys to? Yeah.
I'd rather not. I'd rather take conditional than waiting an extra 30 days.
All right. Well, with that, I'll make a motion that we approve the rezoning on the condition that future access, and I think staff, either Whitney or Michelle, should we just say that any future residents access Ball Camp since there's an existing house there? Or all access?
I'd probably say future lots, that way it would be accommodated via the plat and easement.
Okay. Future lots subdivided from this parcel be accommodated through an easement to Ball Camp.
Could you say dwelling units? Like, because if I have to subdivide it and, this will allow me to subdivide it through the planning commission without, because if you say lot, then I wouldn't be able to make a lot until I have that easement. And so I think dwelling units kind of effectively does the same thing because no one's living there yet. You couldn't build it because it's the road. It's the driving that you guys are talking about. That's all I was asking, is if you could make the motion to say dwelling units.
Okay. Michelle, do you think that?
I'm verifying really quick to see if RA will allow more than one primary structure on a lot. I think it does, but I'm just wanting to verify.
Well, yeah, the RA zone would allow consideration of a duplex, but not two houses on the same lot. But we probably want the access worked out before the lot's created, because once the lot's created, the ability to, you're almost creating a lot that you can't use if the access never materializes that from Ball Camp Pike because of the zoning condition. So the access needs to be worked out before the lot is created.
So keeping it parcel is before?
Yeah. The way that you worded it, like future lot access, like conditioning it upon the lot being created instead of the unit.
Okay.
And we do typically allow that to occur simultaneously with the plat because they submit the easement as part of the documents that get approved as part of the plat process. So it kind of can happen concurrently.
Cool. All right. Awesome. All right. Let me know if I need to repeat that, but
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Higgins, seconded by Commissioner Adams to rezone to low-density residential conditioned upon future lot access to Ball Camp. Is that right? Is that what we got? Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is agenda item number 12, the applicant Benjamin C. Mullins, location southeast side of West Beaver Creek Drive, northeast of Clinton Highway, 4.8 acres, present zoning agricultural, zoning requested planned residential, existing land use rural residential, agricultural, forestry, and vacant land. Density proposed is up to 24 dwelling units per acre. This will require one motion. Staff recommendation is to approve planned residential zone up to 12 dwelling units per acre because it is compatible with surrounding zoning and consistent with the comprehensive plan, subject to the noted one condition. I see the applicant is before us. Do we have any opposition? Would you like to proceed or defer, Councilor Mullins?
I'll defer, please. Thank you.
All right. And let's see, we have signed up our 12. Looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4 speakers. Is that right? Are all 4 here? And please be cognizant of the 5 minutes. sharing of time, okay? So we have Mr. Dave Queener.
Hello, sir. Members of the commission. I do have a handout to give you with photographs. Should I just,
Can we get?
there's about 22 of these things, I believe. And I speak in opposition to the change in zoning. My home at 2701 Lakewood Lane butts up against these two parcels. I can't say I was born in the house, but I was brought there when I was 5 days old, so I'm a long-term resident. But I have 6 basic reasons why we would object to having this change in the zoning, which would lead to a substantial apartment development. Looking at it, the recommendation of the staff for 12 dwelling units per acre, that could be potentially about 57 different dwelling units on 4.8 acres. That could very easily develop into 100, 150 people. But let me give you my reasons. And these 6 points, you'll notice they are also tied in with photographs appropriately numbered. Number one is just the limited visibility and the capacity of West Beaver Creek Drive at the point at which this development would take place. Now, I realize that staff commented on this in the report, but I would point out to you, and there is a photograph showing that any access to Beaver Creek is going to be in the midst of a hill. It is not ideal visibility, and if you come out on Beaver Creek, unlike when the photograph was taken on a Saturday afternoon, you come out on a Friday evening or afternoon, you will find that there is more than enough traffic to cause a significant wait. I would hate to see anyone get hurt in this location. Other people via the web have commented on that, so I'll move on. Second point is that this development would lead to, contrary to what staff has suggested, that you would have appropriate, compatible to surrounding zoning. I do not think that's the case. Surrounding these parcels are all single-family dwellings. Very typical of the way it used to be in the past in Knox County. Modest home, maybe on a fairly large lot, several acres. But that is generally still the case in this area. So you put a big apartment complex, it's going to be totally disruptive of the community that is there. And like I say, it is a community. People for 3 generations have lived in many of these homes. I myself, my parents, that's 2 generations in our own home. Thirdly, the parcels in question also straddle a floodplain. The reason I can say that is because we have a 3-acre pond that is just upstream. Now you notice, staff notice, and also on the graphic, there's a blue water stream going through the area. Now, right now, that's just kind of a trickle. We're sort of in drought conditions. But when we have significant rain events, our 3-acre lake overflows, and according to my calculations, we're generating over our spillway anywhere from 4,000 to just under 9,000 gallons of water per minute. That is a torrent. And it goes down through there as a torrent. Also, this area is partially wetland. You see on the following page, I've shown you at least where it's dried up at the moment. But this is a wetland area. The creek itself, not much flow now, but under normal circumstances, you better wear rubber boots when you go down through this area on that property. Fourth objection is this. You put a large development like this being proposed with lots of pavement in this particular location, you're going to contaminate the water supply for the hobby farm that immediately adjoins it. The Addison's farm, located at 2520, hosts cows, horse, chickens, goats, sheep, and so forth. They depend upon that water supply. You turn it into runoff from parking lots, it's going to be contaminated with oil. It will not be fit for being drunk by the various creatures. Fifthly, and I think this is the most grievous difficulty, is this area is a wildlife corridor. Wildlife come down off a ridge that goes in back of our house, as well as up from Beaver Creek itself. And they use that corridor where that blue stream is to access our pond and to continue back around to the ridge. Every day, there's a family of turkeys that goes through there that I observe. They're a little skittish, hard to get close, but I got one picture there. Our wildlife cameras show we have multitudinous deer, we have foxes, we have different kinds of birds roosting in the trees. We've even had in the wet area there an egret. Great blue herons is common. You build a complex like this, you will destroy the path for that wildlife, you will destroy their homes, and you will destroy one of the most attractive features of our neighborhood at Lakewood Lane. And sixthly, more of a personal note, is that if this development goes in, it will be within just a few hundred feet of our pond. And you might say, well, what's the problem with that? Well, it's very simple. It's the L word, liability. It's one thing where you have a handful of neighbors.
Mr.
whether in
Quinn,
our-
if you can wrap up, please.
Yes. Whether over on Beaver Creek or over in our neighborhood, to invite them in to go in where there's a pond to go fishing. You put a development with 150 people in there, we'd probably have to say no to folks coming to fish and or fence in the place. I don't have to do that. But that's basically the summation of the 6 objections that I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We had others signed up to speak. How many others do we have that are present to speak? Is it?
Mine's only a minute and a half. It's real quick.
Do we have others? Do we have?
I think he covered between the two of us.
Okay, all right. We'll extend it 2 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Hey, good afternoon. My name is Lemuel Boggs. I'm a resident at 2730 Lakewood Lane. I'd like to express my opposition to the proposed rezoning of the multifamily units on West Beaver Creek. Having 2 boys in the Powell School District, one of the most pressing concerns is the condition of these schools, especially the elementary school. Other neighborhood developments currently underway are already contributing to additional strain on our school's capacity. The elementary school has several temporary buildings in use that have been in use for over 35 years. These buildings were recently on the news as having issues with their air conditioning leaks, and possible mold. While school districts has said that they have addressed these concerns, it is only by a temporary fix. Adding more multifamily housing in large neighborhoods will only exacerbate these problems. I would like to see our funding go towards updating our school system rather than putting money into the streets that need to accommodate these additional families. We need to put the focus on updating the school's size, conditions, and security before we can develop more land that brings more students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councilor Mullins, we will extend your time an additional 2 minutes as well.
Thank you, Chairman Hill. Ben Mullins, 550 West Main Street, here for the applicant. Wasn't expecting opposition today. I wish I'd had a chance to speak with some of them beforehand. But I do understand what their concerns are and appreciate having the opportunity that you give me to at least listen to their concerns first before I can address commission. Yeah, and in this point, this is a planned residential rezoning, which, as you know, a planned residential rezoning requires there to be a development plan move forward on this property before anything can be built, before any permits could be pulled. So many of the concerns that Mr. Queener and Mr. I believe Boggs, I believe was his name. Did I get that right? Is it Boggs? Good, perfect. What they mentioned would be addressed during the design phase of a property like this. You know, this is just a few hundred feet from the intersection of West Beaver Creek and Clinton Highway. There's already funds allocated for the improvements at that intersection, and I know that has been in the works since at least 2018, maybe even before, and I think it's anticipated to be completed in 2026 is the best timeline I believe I've gotten from Engineering Public Works, but they're still in the right-of-way acquisition phase on this. So issues regarding visibility, that's something that engineers will have to work on with the Engineering Public Works to make sure that visibility can be certified for the site distance, or even if we rezone the property, nothing can be done on the property. And let me mention, The planned residential at 12 units an acre that staff is recommending, we are fine with that. We'd asked for 24 units an acre because that's what the place type that we just went through the advanced Knox process, updating our comprehensive land use transportation map and coming up with these different place types for to replace the sector plans, place this property in the traditional neighborhood, which allows considerations of PR for up to 24 units an acre. So we asked for the 24 units an acre, so we haven't fully formed what our plans are yet. And we'll be happy to work with the neighborhood or with their concerns as we're going forward with whatever plans that we do have, because we don't have a concept in mind. Sometimes I'm standing up here asking for a rezoning and have a pretty good idea of what we're looking for. Here, we don't have a specific concept. We don't know if it's going to be a multifamily or some type of, middle form housing, or we'll do single family residential on this. So all those things are still very much in the formative phase, and we'll be happy to talk to the neighbors about that as we move forward, and also in addressing their concerns. But most of these issues do get worked out on the development plan phase. He said this was in a floodway. There does appear to be a blue line stream through there, but it is not designated floodway by TDEC or by the Knox County zoning ordinance. There are stream buffers that we will have to meet, which is why the planned residential zone is specifically appropriate for a property like this, even though it's, it's Tennessee flat, it's not especially hilly, and it doesn't have a very odd configuration. There are still environmental constraints that we need to take into consideration for this. And the planned residential zone, as you know, is specifically intended to, there is some topography there on the south east side, but it's intended to encourage and facilitate creative solutions to these environmental problems. And so they certainly can work around those issues. And even if we get the full density that staff's recommending and that we're agreeing with, the 12 units an acre, there's no guarantee that 12 units an acre could be actually developed on that. I think it's very rare you see a zoning that has a specified density, and when the development concept plan comes in, almost inevitably it's going to be significantly less than the density that is at least potentially allowed by the zoning itself. Again, if there's wetland issues there, then as part of the process, there'll have to be some wetland delineation. We'll have to work with TDEC on that and make sure that those considerations are taken into account as well. The contamination concerns, I understand whenever there's a development like this and you're creating impervious areas out of areas that are now green, those concerns are legitimate concerns, sincere, and we understand that, which is why we have a very robust stormwater ordinance, and our engineers will work with the county's engineering to make sure that our stormwater meets all the requirements and that any contamination concerns would be addressed in the process. Regarding the schools, one of the reasons why this is an attractive piece of property for residential development, I think one of the reasons why this body and the legislative body ultimately decided to put a traditional neighborhood place type designation on it is its proximity to the schools, and schools get improved with tax dollars. Tax dollars come with putting homes up and residences up, and they spend the money where it's needed. It sounds like there is money needed here, and once this property is developed and once we have Knox County residents living in these homes, then additional tax dollars will be generated to help offset any impacts to the schools. So, we have to trust our professional staff, we have to trust our engineers, and the recommendation for this is that planned residential is appropriate and that the density of 12 units an acre is appropriate as well. And I'd ask that you follow staff's recommendation and approve that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Adams.
Thanks. I've got two questions. The first one is about the first condition. I'm forgetting whose case this is.
It's Jesse's, but I'm covering her cases since she's out.
Okay. So my question is, the staff recommendation is 12 dwelling units per acre, but then the condition says no more than 24 residential building permits would be issued. Can you help me understand that?
Sure. So the intent of the condition was to keep the development at a low density, around 5 dwelling units per acre, until the road infrastructure could support more residences. It's not intended to prohibit the site development preparation of more residents, just limit actual residences until that connection is made. So it's just to, I guess, keep it low until the connection provides for better access. Is that answering your question?
Yes, it does. I was getting confused with the 24 dwelling units per acre, 12 dwelling units per acre. That's.
Right, yeah, so our recommendation is the 12, yeah.
Okay, and I think that's great that there is sort of a threshold of, once we get to this, like, we've got to have improvements. That is showing the connected tissue between the plan and infrastructure and any kind of proposal that's coming through. The other question I have is, again, sort of a procedural one about, since this plan is new and it's in the traditional neighborhood. So I was, looking at this, what do the pictures look like for a development that might happen in that zone? And my question, because all of these are, they're smaller in their height, they feel very residential. They do not feel like a high-rise sort of scenario. And so my question is, since the plan we don't have a development in front of us or a concept, at what juncture does the developer or the applicant start to infuse these ideas that are in the booklet that we all have with their plan? And is staff the sort of gatekeeper for that before it comes to us?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right now, it's kind of in that fuzzy in-between area because with the zones that we have don't fit super cleanly with the place types. So we try to guide it towards the intent of the place type because there's not any specific rule saying that you have to do this and you have to do that. And sometimes when they're in conflict with the zone. So in most cases, when that happens, we go with the zone since that's the codified the law that we have, basically. So we do try to guide sort of a fine line between the two. So I guess I didn't think of us as gatekeepers, but that's probably a good word for it. But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Chair will entertain a motion.
I just have one comment to make. It's nice and it's very refreshing to evaluate this recommendation that staff made based on infrastructure as opposed to looking at surrounding properties. I'm appreciative of the Knox plan that we have in place, and I hope that this continues to be a really great guide for us in making these decisions based on infrastructure as opposed to development around us. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve staff's recommendation for plan residential up to 12 dwelling units per acre because it's compatible with the surrounding zoning and consistent with the comprehensive plan, subject to one condition. Do I need to read the condition?
We have a motion by Commissioner Midas, seconded by Commissioner Levinson to approve plan residential up to 12 dwelling units per staff recommendation. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is agenda item number 15. Applicant Masana Investments, LLC. Location, south side of West Governor Johnsonville Highway, north side of Tipton Station Road, 27.63 acres. Present zoning is plain residential up to 3 dwelling units per acre. Zone requested, planned residential, existing land use, agriculture, forestry, vacant land. Density proposed is up to 6 dwelling units per acre. This will require one motion, and the staff recommendation is to approve planned residential zone with up to 6 dwelling units per acre because it is consistent with the Knox County Comprehensive Plan and due to the change of conditions in the area, subject to one condition. Is the applicant present? Do we have opposition? All right, we have opposition, and it looks like Mr., is it Geisel? Is that Mr. Geisel? Would you like to proceed or defer, Mr. Davis? Defer? Okay, Mr. Geisel, would you like to speak? And then after you, Mr. Robert Thompson.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you. As someone who works with public servants, those that are volunteering their time, appreciate all that you do. I live in the...
Mr. Geisel, before we get started, would you
Yes.
please share your name and address?
Sorry, Bill Geisel, and I live at 1416 Tipton Station Road, right directly across from this subject property. Thank you. So I am against this, the approval of the rezoning. First thought would be that actually this wasn't zoned for 3 dwelling units. That was rezoned a few years ago when this property was purchased by the folks that had lived in there for 40 years in the dwelling that's still existent. And so it was sold to what was going to be a senior living community. And so that was then increased. The property that's here is along the Tipton Station Road corridor. And I think the easy thing would be is to look at this map, this plotting, and look across the street at West Governor John Sevier Highway and say, well, as has already been mentioned, that's consistent with what's going on in the development that's happening. And I would like to suggest to you to rethink that perspective, because John Sevier Highway is currently 3-lane, and it's designated to turn into a 4-lane divided highway in the next 10 years. And everything that's been developed on the other side of the highway is completely separate and almost a virtually different community from what we have south of there. There is a slope all the way down from John Sevier down to Tipton Station, and that has created more of a rural community for us and a neighborhood. And as a result of that, the Tipton Station Road is just a 2-lane, and where this property comes in, actually, right where my property is, it's on a hill. So as you come around that lower curve, that would be to the east, you come around that curve and then it goes up the hill, and that's very difficult sight lane. People, even when I'm driving into my driveway and turning left opposite this property, I'm always concerned about who can see me, how fast are they going, and whether or not I can safely make the turn. And that's true coming from the other side as well, because that hill peaks just to the west. And so coming up from Newbert Springs, you have to crest a hill. And again, if I'm slowing down to turn into my property, I'm always concerned about vehicles coming behind me as I'm slowing down to make my turn. So what you just saw there was Stout Lane next to it, and just beyond that's Winkle Road. Stout Lane goes nowhere. It's a dead end. And so that's my property with the 2 pillars there. The said property is a driveway that goes up that way. Thank you. And so that's the hill that I reference. Doesn't look as significant from this picture, but when you're on that, you're coming up that hill and you can't see over that peak. And that creates a lot of issues. And so in this area, you see it's all single family dwellings, and it's a community. And that property, and I guess I should say, that down Tipton Station one direction and John Sevier one direction, and going the opposite direction, there has recently been another development that's been added. And in talking to the lady that lives, I talked to her yesterday, lives on the corner of Stout Lane and Tipton Station. They have lived there. They're generational homeowners there. And she is also a bus driver for the school. And she said that the volume of traffic that's now been created from several of these developments has created for her an incredible difficulty just driving her school bus from the elementary school, then past the high school. All of that is there. And I'm telling you, in the morning during school traffic and in the afternoon during school traffic, Students don't slow down, the volume is high, and it's incredibly difficult. And I guess I'd mention one last thing. I'm also a road cyclist. And I've come to appreciate the fact that Knox County and Knoxville as a city has become a destination for cyclists because we have the annual road race. And I sit at my property and I ride these roads, and I have to be strategic when I'm going to ride because it's dangerous. And I have to always think about creating hazards for the vehicular traffic, the motorized vehicular traffic, because most people they don't realize that non-motorized vehicular traffic has a right to the roadway too.
Mr. Geisel, you're out of time.
Okay. I just would ask that you would deny this and leave it at least at the 3 dwelling units per acre. Thank you.
Is Mr. Thompson with us? Mr. Thompson? Good to see you.
Thank you. I don't really want to, I would ask only that you allow me 2 minutes to respond to anything that
Certainly.
the
Go
applicant
ahead.
might say. Is that
Go
good?
ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute now. Oh, I thought you were asking for 2 minutes. What? Oh, you, okay. You want 2 minutes to rebut. Okay. Mr. Davis?
Yeah, Scott Davis, P.O. Box 11315, Knoxville 37939. Appreciate y'all's time. We met with Mr. Snowden in Engineering and Public Works, and we do not intend to have access onto Tipton Station, and so our access is intended to be directly onto John Sevier Highway. And I would respectfully, request y'all approve as per staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, would you like to comment?
Did I hear he said no access on Tipton?
Yes.
So that would be a condition such as you imposed on the ball camp case previously?
I'm sorry?
That would be a similar condition you imposed on the case earlier involving ball camp?
We can get into that in our discussion. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Commission? Commissioner Adams?
So that's an interesting, I didn't know that that would be an option, that it could only be accessed from John Sevier. That helps, I think, in terms of trying to meet everybody's concerns. So I'd like to have a little more discussion. But.
Okay, Commissioner Browning?
Yeah, I think Mr. Davis just took a lot of the concerns out of the room, and I think staff has this right. And I know there could be some other discussion, but I would like to make a motion to approve the PR planned residential zone with up to 6 dwelling units per acre because it is consistent with the Knox County Comprehensive Plan and due to the change of conditions in the area subject to the one condition.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Browning to approve planned residential up to 6 dwelling units per acre per staff recommendation. Seconded, I'm sorry, who seconded that? Commissioner Levinson. Okay, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. Commissioner Adams?
I just want to see if, because the condition that is included in the staff recommendation is about the John Sevier buffer. I think that's the only condition, correct? Yeah. So can we, since it's the plan is that this would only be accessed by John Sevier, go ahead and codify this because it's in the county and say that that is a second condition of the zoning for the 6 dwelling units per acre. Is that just like the other case where we said there's a conditional zoning?
Mr. Davis, are you comfortable with that? Do you have your access on John Sevier Highway?
Yes, sir, we're fine with access directly onto John Sevier. There's a slight possibility, we haven't done all the layouts, but there could be one or possibly a couple of driveways coming onto Tipton Station, possibly on the very back end of the property, but there's already a couple of residents now. But the subdivision itself and the entire access for the entire subdivision would be directly onto John Sevier Highway, yes, sir. And we're fine with that condition.
You're, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I would just ask Commissioner Browning if you'd be willing, since the applicant is seemingly good with that, that condition also be placed.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so we're adding the conditional zoning, or the conditional zoning to be accessed via John Sevier Highway.
I think too, just real quick, just to make sure, if I heard Mr. Davis correctly, there could be a couple of single-family accesses to Tipton Station, but the main entrance would be off John Sevier.
They would, accessing Tipton Station would not exceed 5 total out of the entire subdivision.
Right.
We've got a piece of property down that is on Tipton Station, and there's an existing residence there. We may decide to keep that residence with that driveway and have, the maximum would be probably 5 maximum directly onto Tipton Station, yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to, I guess, clarify that.
But the subdivision entrance itself would be on, there would not be a cut-through, and we would not have access from the subdivision to Tipton Station, correct? Yes, sir.
Right, okay. Just wanted to clarify that, make
I
sure.
think that language is suitable. The staff, do you all have any concerns about that?
I think if you word it in such a way where you're limiting access purely to John Sevier, that could prohibit the single-family lots on Tipton Station. So you probably should include something in there about maybe the main subdivision entry or all but 5 single-dwelling units or single-family dwelling units on Tipton Station, however you all want to do that, but that would be my recommendation.
Okay. So Commissioner Browning, you did make the motion, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you want to add some language about up to 5 single-family
Single-family.
access Tipton Station, a maximum?
Okay. Yes. So my motion would be amended to include up to 5 single families being able to be accessed by Tipton Station. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's my motion.
So we've got the access to subdivision via John Sevier Highway, we've added that. And now we're limiting to any additional access up to 5 single-family units. Does that sound right, staff? Onto Tipton Station. We got that? Everybody good?
Yep.
And
Amend the second.
Commissioner Levinson is seconding that motion. We still have lights. Commissioner Gill.
I mean, I don't want to undo what we just did there, but this is a PR zone, which is unlike the one that we talked about where we put conditions on access. It's a PR zone, which means this will be coming back to us for a development plan.
Okay.
We would have that opportunity to approve or deny based on whatever plan that he comes up with. So providing him flexibility at that point would make more sense. We don't know how many units he's going to be providing. He just says he's getting access, and we may or may not have any on Tipton Station Road. Wouldn't it be more appropriate to address that during the development plan?
I think, well, I think that some, maybe not all, are comfortable with no more than 5, and so that kind of puts the issue to rest, but maybe
I'm okay with that.
maybe some are not, and that's a fair discussion.
If the applicant is okay with that kind of restriction, I'm not necessarily got a problem. It just seems like for a precedent perspective, if we were already addressing this at the development plan stage, leaving it open-ended and saying, let's see the development plan and then make those considerations, at least from a process perspective, makes more sense. But if we're all cool with that, I mean, I have no objection.
Just on the record, yes, I'm agreeable to both of those conditions. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Overton.
I just wanted to express my agreement with Commissioner Gill. I think that because it's planned residential, the conditional zoning kind of fuddles the issue, whereas when we have a development plan in front of us, we can see the actual units, the actual access, the actual roads, and not have this kind of amorphous language go up to county commission, have them, do what they want to do to it as well in a legislative process, and then set, again, like Commissioner Gill said, a kind of this precedent where we have these really, frankly, kind of confusing zoning standards when we can just say, okay, this is planned residential, and then when we have the development plan, it's more clear, and I think we're going to get better outcomes in the long run versus this conditional zoning language that, again, I'm not going to vote against it. If the applicant's cool with it, I don't think we should have access on Tipton Station to the entire neighborhood, but I just wanted to express my support for that point because I think it's a good one.
I mean, I think it's a fair point. I think at the same time, it could put some of the opposition somewhat at peace and not have to, continue on with that. Okay, we got more lights here. Commissioner Higgins.
Yeah, I was just going to add that from a design standpoint, when you're looking at, like when the civil engineers are laying this out, if there are some big picture things that we can include in our approval, then we, getting an application in to come before us, you wait, you have to get it in 2 months before the meeting, right? So drawing something, submitting it, waiting 2 months, and then coming, and then for us to then say something that we could have already had said, I do think can be helpful. So, and I've seen that a number of times, we've all seen that over the past few years where, there's been an approval that someone's expressed a desire that when it comes to concept plan, X will be included, but then it wasn't a requirement and it comes back and that isn't included and it still gets approved. So I do think the more direction that we can include, the better, for sure.
Commissioner Midas.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. I like Mr. Geisel. I know this intersection really well. I cycle this a lot. There's really good access to John Sevier just up the street. And I guess my question is more for Mr. Snowden. Like, is that something that you think that this proposal needs, is access onto John Sevier, as opposed to just driving up Tipton Station just a little bit to be able to have that really great access that gets onto John Sevier? You see especially with like Pellissippi, I mean, there's so many areas now where they're blocking off access to neighborhood commercials because it's just dangerous. I mean, that road, John Sevier is pretty fast along that strip. So I guess I was just kind of wondering what his thought was on that.
Yeah, for sure, Commissioner. We would prefer access on John Sevier also. You're right, it does carry a lot of traffic, and it has, the speeds are higher, but it's certainly designed to a much more robust standard that I think would allow for this additional volume of traffic than Tipton Station would. So from an engineering perspective, we would prefer to see it on John Sevier Highway also.
Okay, Commissioner Anderson. I'm sorry.
As opposed to using that access road from Tipton onto John Sevier, which is just up the street, right?
Oh, the one that comes from Newbert Springs?
Yes, right. There's that, it looks like it's in theory, you could take a sharp right there and get on access, have access to John Sevier.
Yes, I think obviously John Sevier Highway is a state route, so we would want to talk to them and get their opinion. But I do believe that, if Mr. Davis, as part of that, we're to install a right turn lane, and obviously you got the center turn lane there. I believe the access for the parcel on John Sevier would still remain a better option for the public at this point.
Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I agree with Commissioner Overton about potentially this is better dealt with in the development plan. But if we are going to move forward with this, I want to clarify, and Mr. Davis, this may take some input from you. Are we limiting one driveway to feed 5 houses off Tipton Station, or are we saying that you can have up to 5 driveways?
Well, I think we need that clarification. Yeah.
I would assume, Mr. Davis, you want 5 separate driveways potentially, is that?
Yeah, that we would not exceed 5 separate access points onto Tipton Station, and probably won't have any, but it would not exceed 5 access points onto Tipton Station, correct? Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second and clarification that no more than 5 driveways accesses to Tipton Station. Everybody clear on that? Okay, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Not if we just. Yeah. All right, agenda item number 16, applicant Benjamin C. Mullins, location west side of Byington Beaver Ridge Road, north of Byington Solway Road, 4.99 acres, present zoning, planned residential up to 4 dwelling units per acre, Zoning requested, plan residential. Existing land use, rural residential. Density proposed up to 4.3 dwelling units per acre. This will require one motion. Staff recommendation is to deny planned residential zone up to 4.3 dwelling units per acre because the increase in density is not warranted, and there has been no new change of conditions since the last rezoning request in October of 2023. Is the applicant present?
Yes, Ben Mullins, 550 West Main Street, here for the applicant.
And do we have opposition? Any opposition? Seeing no opposition, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Ben Mullins, 550 West Main Street, here for the applicant. As staff report just noted, this was before you back in October, where it was rezoned from RA General Residential to planned residential at 4 dwelling units an acre. I passed out a handout. This is the proposed concept and layout for Plan 7C24DP, which was, I think, agenda item 21 on an agenda today that was postponed for 60 days while we're discussing this request to change the zoning from 4 dwelling units an acre to 4.3 dwelling units an acre. Right now, that proposal that you have in front of you, it shows the duplexes that are intended to be on the property. There's planned 18 right now. The single-family residential property that's on the front of Byington Beaver Ridge Road, that is to remain as is. The 18 duplexes functions out to about 3 dwelling units an acre for 19 units total. If you look at that concept, you'll see with the road running along the south of the property, it kind of helps separate these proposed residences from the industrial property to the south. At the top of that cul-de-sac, there is some open space that would be appropriate for 2 more units, another duplex, which is why we didn't know we would be able to design it that way at the time. There was some question about the acreage and question about how much detention and stormwater would be available, which is why we didn't ask for 4.3 units an acre in October when we were here before. But it does seem that it'd be appropriate to be able to do an additional duplex unit on this property. Staff's objection, and I understand their objection, is that nothing has changed since October and now. Well, the conditions that were in place in October of 2023 that justified the rezoning to PR at 4 units an acre, they're still in place. But what has changed since then is that we have gone through a whole comprehensive land use process through Advanced Knox to update the place types instead of sector plans, and to identify and better articulate and capture our development policies for these place types. And before, this was in planned residential at the maximum density would have been 5 units an acre. The place type that it is now is suburban residential, which allows for considerations of single family and 2-family homes. But the suburban residential, according to the matrix, would also allow considerations of planned residential zoning for up to 12 units an acre in particular. So I mean, there's certainly an increased development potential on this property that isn't in place now. Now, the 4.3 units an acre is actually closer to the RA zoning that was in place in October. RA zoning has 10,000 square foot lots, which has a maximum density of 4.35 dwelling units an acre with the 10,000 square foot lots. So the density is still very much in line to what it was before the original rezoning, but the planned residential allows us to address some of the environmental constraints, and that really is to kind of cluster those properties away from that industrial property there to the south. So the policies, the development policies that are now in place under the new plan that weren't in place before, is ensure that development is sensitive to existing community character. And, this is a very diverse area where there's industrial zoning and commercial zoning along with residential zoning. It's also a very attractive area for zoning because it's close to Carnes High School. Also, Development Policy 5, create neighborhoods with a variety of housing types and amenities in close proximity. Here we're mixing single-family residential with duplexes, and promote attainable housing that meets the needs current future residents. And duplexes are more affordable than single-family residential, and so it would be a nice opportunity for starter homes in this location. So respectfully, I do think there has been changing conditions even since October, and that I'd ask that you would approve the increase from 4.3 units an acre. And I want to focus, Ms. Warner, I do appreciate, during the agenda review, she said that 2 additional units would not adversely affect traffic or environmental conditions. So the objection, I think, is that there wasn't a perceived changing condition, but with the new development policies in place, I believe that there is a basis to allow 2 additional units on this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Huber.
Yeah, I remember when this came through, and truthfully, I was supportive at 5 units an acre, because I do think it's a transitional area. But I like it more now that I see the concept plan. It does allow, I like how the road is on the left-hand side, which provides a buffer from the, the industrial that's a lot away. And even in the back, where it does abut some of it, it's got a nice landscaping screen and the detention pond, which will shield it even further. I guess I was thinking about it, gosh, if it were coming through today, if it was still zoned RA, and that application never happened back in October, how would we look at it under the new comprehensive plan, which, as Councilor mentioned, allows up to 12 units an acre and encourages it. And I think in this type of area, I think it makes sense. I think a higher density makes sense. 2 more units is not injurious whatsoever. I mean, we've already got, you're already pregnant. Yeah, I mean, it's there. You've got, 19 units. It's not going to make any difference whatsoever. So with that being said, I appreciate staff, but I think we might be being a little conservative on this one. So I would move to approve PR zone up to 4.3 dwelling units per acre because the increase in density is warranted. I think it has changed, and under the new comprehensive plan, if we really look at it with fresh eyes, it encourages higher density than what even 4 units an acre.
We've got a motion to approve planned residential zone up to 4.3 dwelling units per acre by Vice Chair Huber, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. Commissioner Adams.
Can I have staff comment on how, because this is, it's all new. And so I think we're getting a case coming back to us, kind of bouncing back, because the changing condition has been referenced as, well, we have this new plan. Is that part, are we supposed to be using that as a condition of change? I don't know.
I don't think it's the only condition of change, and we didn't feel that that was strong enough. In this case, we're looking for other improvements, infrastructure improvements, and so at this time, we didn't think that just because it allows up to 12 doesn't mean that this place should have higher zoning.
So I'm kind of asking this in a general fashion. This case is just presenting it as an issue. But if I'm hearing you correctly, you did look at the changed plan as a changed condition. So we should as well.
Yeah, you know.
Yes, we did consider the change in the plan as one of the change in conditions. And I think had we recommended the 5 dwelling units an acre, had gone with the maximum last time, then that could be a change that would warrant raising it higher this time. But because we already didn't go with the maximum, we didn't see a need to raise it to go to a higher number at this point. And, just looking at how the PR zone is looked at in the comprehensive plan, it's always as a partially related zone, which just, it doesn't mean it's a blanket consideration across everything. It kind of, we look at it at a case-by-case basis to see whether or not it fits in within the context of the area. And in this situation, it's next to a lot of industrial zoning. So we do try to minimize that impact between, or the adjacent residential and industrial zones. So that was one of the reasons we didn't go with the 5 the last time, and why we kept it at 4.3 this time, or 4.0 instead of 4.3 this time.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful.
Vice Chair Huber.
So, I mean, with respect to that, and this is asking respectfully from the staff, I mean, this property is, let me measure it real quick. It looks to be maybe 300 some odd feet away from a commercial mixed-use center as well. I mean, as we're trying to promote walking and connectivity, that confuses me in the sense, I understand that you want to try to keep people somewhat away from a, industrial, but at the same time, we're in walking distance from commercial mixed use, which is going to suggest higher. Mixed use is going to be 12 units an acre. It's going to be apartments. It's going to be commercial and mixed together. So I'm struggling understanding why we would say 300 feet away, you can't have 2 more units. Go to 4.3. That's just my point, is all. Thank you.
It's been pointed out to me that when this came before us previously, that there was a condition regarding a landscape screen. So we may want to consider that as we consider this motion. And if you look in your notes there, last year, a rezoning request was submitted to go from RA to PR up to 5 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommended the lesser density with one condition to provide a landscape screen to the adjacent industrial property, which was approved by County Commission in December 2023. What's it? Oh, okay, so we already have that in there.
From last year.
That's the exact word.
Provide a type A, okay, I got it, okay. So the wording was provide a type A landscape screen within a landscape buffer strip, a minimum of 15 feet in width, adjacent to industrial property to the west. And we got a motion in a second. I think it's something to consider. Who gave us that motion? Was that, okay, Vice Chair Huber, do you want to add that to your motion? The landscape screen?
Where is it?
This was from the previous staff recommendation. So I just read it, it's a type A landscape screen on the west side. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to still include that landscape screen on the west side. But just one more quick comment too about it. As I was looking at the commercial mixed use, which in my opinion, reading the comprehensive plan, is going to encourage multifamily, that type of thing, and it's 900 feet of it is bordering the same industrial park. So I'm struggling, with, it's okay to do it there, but not okay to have slightly higher density 300 feet away. But yes, in the end, ultimately move to approve 4.3 dwelling units an acre with a type A landscape screen on the western border of the property.
Okay, so we've got a motion to approve 4.3 dwelling units per acre with the type A landscape screen, same wording that was presented in the previous case, previous application. Everybody understand what we're voting on? Okay. Commissioner Adams.
Sorry, can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Because Commissioner Hughes pointed out a few different places. Can you show me on the map the area that you're referring to about the, okay, so that's what you're referring to as the area that they could walk to? Yeah?
Yeah.
Is there, the road, is the road that connects that, is that a human road? I mean, is that a road that someone can walk on, or like with a sidewalk, or is that just? Okay, so it's a 2-lane, okay. And then the other item that you had pointed out was right near the property, 900 feet away, I think you said, a much larger or more dense development. If you can just.
No, what I was saying is, if you pull up the comprehensive plan, it's calling for the commercial mixed use, which is about 900 linear feet that borders the industrial park. And there's most likely going to have residential in there, some sort of multifamily residential that has 900 feet that's bordering it, which I'm trying to find the connection where you're saying, oh, you can't have it, you can't border it, you can't have any density 300 feet away, but we're okay with it right here with 300 feet, or pardon me, 900 feet bordering it when you're, that's my point.
Right, I'm tracking on your point. I needed it to be pointed out up here just so I could get my head in the same space, yeah?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have one no. Motion carries. Next is agenda item number 19. Applicant is Gregory D. Location, southeast side of George Light Road, northeast side of Solway Road, 2.12 acres. Present zoning is planned residential up to 3 dwelling units per acre, agricultural and technology overlay, as well as floodway. Zoning requested, planned residential and technology overlay and floodway. Existing land use, agricultural, forestry, vacant land, and water. Density proposed, 2 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommendation is to approve the planned residential zone with up to 1.5 dwelling units per acre because it is consistent with the Knox County Comprehensive Plan and surrounding development. Technology overlay and floodway zones would be retained. Is the applicant present? All right. Do we have any opposition? Any opposition? Would the applicant like to speak? All right. Commission? Vice Chair Huber.
Make a motion to approve per staff recommendation.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Huber, seconded by Commissioner Barger. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is agenda item 20. This will require 5 motions. Subdivision is Horbit on Bob Gray Road. Applicant developer, Arsip Horbit. Location, south side of Bob Gray Road, west side of Pillsippi Parkway, northern terminus of Blinken Street. Approximate acreage, 9.87 acres. Zoning is planned residential up to 10 dwelling units per acre. Technology overlay. Existing land use, agriculture, forestry, and vacant land. Proposed use, attached residential subdivision. Number of lots, 94. Subdivision variances will require two variances. And looks like under alternative design standard requiring our approval would be 2 items. Staff recommendation, motion number 1, approve the requested variance to provide a turnaround other than a cul-de-sac at the end of Road A. And then we have items A, B, and C underneath. Right here. Okay. Okay. My counselor here says I must read all of it, so bear with me. The particular surroundings of this site include a townhouse development to the south with a singular access point that is off of Pillsippi Parkway. The proposed development will be connected to Parkway Heights upon its completion to enable the Pillsippi Parkway access point to be closed. The turnaround would not be required after that fact and is only temporary. B, the rezoning condition from case 12F23RZ requires a right-of-way stub out to Parkway Heights. The rezoning condition is unique to this site as a connection point would not normally be required since it is the turnaround space is temporary and would not be required after the connection point is made. C, the granting of the variance will not be detrimental to public safety, health, or welfare because a turnaround which meets AASHTO standards for roads less than 150 feet has been provided. The road connection to the adjacent subdivision will result in safer access to the Parkway Heights community. Motion number 2, And if you just, if someone wants to make a motion and just say, based on what had been previously reported, that's sufficient. So I don't want to discourage anybody from making this lengthy motion. Motion number 2, approve the requested variance to reduce the vertical curve length from 300 feet to 240 feet, STA 1+0 road F, K values from 25 to 20. Item A, the steep topography along Bob Gray Road causes a deviation with the vertical curve. B, the required access from Bob Gray Road causes the roadway to wind through steep topography. C, the granting of the variance will not be detrimental to public safety, health, or welfare because the shortened vertical curve meets AASHTO standards and still allows adequate sight distance. Motion number 3, under alternative design standard, approve the alternative design standards based on the justifications provided by the applicant and the recommendations of the Knox County Department of Engineering and Public Works. Motion number 4, approve the concept plan subject to the 8 noted conditions. Motion number 5, approve the development plan for up to 85 attached houses on individual lots and a peripheral setback reduction of 25 feet along the eastern property line as shown on the development plan, subject to the 3 noted conditions. Is the applicant present?
I am Ben Mullins, 550 West Main Street, here for the applicant.
Do we have opposition? Do we have any opposition? Let's see.
I believe there
Mr.
were some
Quist?
people. I'm sorry.
Mr. Quist? Yes. Would you like to speak?
I've been won over by Mr. Mullins, and the staff recommendation looks good, and we ask that the development concept plans be approved for staff recommendation.
Thank you so much. All right. Mr. Mullins, you have a persuasive way today.
Well, we worked really hard with Mr. Quist and the neighborhood to work this one out. You'll note this one has a June planning file number, and it's been postponed 3 times until today. So we can work with both the neighborhood and Engineering Public Works. I mean, this is, this is a challenging piece of property. It went through for rezoning. We initially asked for 12 units an acre. Planning staff and this commission actually recommended the 12 units an acre. We agreed to reduce it to 10 units an acre at county commission, subject to 4 conditions. And that would be the type C landscaping screen, not having apartments. And during that time, we discussed that we would be accessing Bob Gray, although that wasn't made a specific condition. But that's really what kind of caused some of the concern about this is when we moved forward with our development plan and we tried to access Bob Gray, it was very difficult to access Bob Gray because all the topography, and it kind of narrows there. You can see how it kind of jogs back to the east. The property line does. And so there was some real concerns in Engineering Public Works whether we would be able to get the appropriate site distance for our access to Bob Gray. And they suggested that perhaps we could access through Boynton Drive, which is through the Highview neighborhood, to the west. And that drew a lot of concern from the neighborhood of Highview. And we had a very robust neighborhood meeting back in June. Some of the planning staff attended, Engineering Public Works attended, and there was a lot of very adamant pushback against having connectivity through Boynton. And Commissioner Adams, I want to address you kind of directly. You asked questions about that, and understand, our new concept, our comprehensive land use plan talks about connectivity 17 times. It certainly is something that we should consider in appropriate circumstances and appropriate cases. This isn't an appropriate case. That neighborhood has been there a very long time. It has some challenging access on Bob Gray itself and some challenging topography. And if you drive down through there, it would not be a neighborhood that you would want to connect to bring not only our development, but ultimately Parkway Heights to the south. So we heard that loud and clear, and we worked very hard with Mr. Harbin. Actually, I'm not going to take the credit for it. I'm not the engineer. Mr. Harbin worked very, very hard to figure out how can we access Bob Gray in a way that would obtain the appropriate site distance. And in fact, many of the variances and alternative design standards that we're asking you to approve is specifically because that's the only way you can really access Bob Gray and get the site distance because of that topography. Couple of things. The staff report says the number of lots are 94. It's actually been reduced down to 85. I think the 94 is what we initially had moved forward with. So I want to be clear. It's 85 lots that we're asking to be approved, which would be a density of 8.6 units an acre. You know, there will ultimately be a connection to Parkway to the south, which is why we're doing that temporary turnaround. Normally, you'd want to have a cul-de-sac instead of a temporary turnaround, but here, that is not going to be a permanent turnaround, so that variance is justified. So, you know, this is the way it's supposed to be done. We've worked with the neighborhood, we've worked with engineering, we've come up with, you know, for this piece of property, the best development plan that I think you could move forward with it, and we'd ask that you approve per staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mullins. Commission, we've got Commissioner Biggs.
Definitely appreciate the coordination with the neighborhood. I agree that's a great way to go about it. Just question on the connectivity piece. Certainly appreciate that it doesn't make sense for automobile connectivity to Boynton Drive. Was there any discussion of more pedestrian connectivity with the neighborhood?
No, we didn't really discuss that. I mean, you know, one of the conditions of the rezoning was a type C landscaping buffer along the western boundary line between our neighborhood and Highview. Going through the TTCDA and getting the certificate of appropriateness, they increased that to a type B, which is 12 foot with a, you know, more continuous screen. And I think the neighborhood appreciated that. Now, I don't think there's any, you know, we're not having any walking trails to that, but, you know, it could, I'm sure there's organic connectivity that can occur between neighborhoods such as this.
Yeah, and definitely don't want to throw a wrench in things at this point, given all the collaboration, but maybe just a question for staff going forward. I feel like we often just conflate connectivity with automobile traffic directly, and I think there's other types of connectivity too that could be brought up and proposed in situations like this for making friends across streets, bus routes, you know, trick-or-treating, things like that. So would maybe encourage that going forward.
And Commissioner Biggs, you're probably like me. If you, when you were growing up, if you had a friend, if you wanted to get to their neighborhood, you had no problem cutting through the woods.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Huber.
I'd like to make a motion to approve as read by Commissioner Hill.
Second.
And this is regarding motion number 1, regarding the variance number 1. We have a motion by Vice Chair Huber, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the requested variance, number 2, as read by Chairman Hill.
Second.
We've got a motion by Vice Chair Huber to approve motion 2 regarding variance 2 per staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the alternative design standards as read by Chairman Hill.
Second.
Under motion 3 regarding alternative design standards, Vice Chair Huber has made a motion to approve per staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the concept plan subject to the 8 conditions as read again by Chairman Hill.
Second.
We have a motion number 4 related to the concept plan, approve the concept plan subject to the 8 conditions, and that motion made by Vice Chair Huber, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the development plan for up to 85 attached houses as read by Chairman Hill.
Second.
We have regarding motion number 5, the development plan, approve the development plan for up to 85 attached houses on individual lots per staff recommendation, along with peripheral setback reduction of 25 feet along the eastern property line as shown on the development plan, subject to the 3 noted conditions. That motion was made by Vice Chair Huber, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On to agenda item 22. Subdivision, 0 Harvey Road. Applicant developer is Masana Investments LLC. Location, west side of Harvey Road, north of South North Shore Drive. Approximate acreage, 13.42 acres. Zoning is planned residential up to 2 dwelling units per acre. Existing land use, agricultural, forestry, vacant land. Proposed use, detached residential subdivision. Number of lots, 26. This will require no variances. This will require 3 motions. Motion 1, as it relates to alternative design standards. Staff recommendation, approve the alternative design standard based on the justification provided by the applicant and recommendations of Knox County Department of Engineering and Public Works. Motion number 2, on the concept plan, approve the concept plan subject to the 10 noted conditions. Motion number 3, related to the development plan, approve the development plan for up to 26 detached residential lots, subject to 1 condition. Is the applicant present? Okay. Do we have opposition? Mr. Van Heem, would you like to speak?
My name is Michael Van Heems. I live at 1501 Crescent Oaks Lane, and we as a community are opposed to the current site plan due to the fact that the extension of Crescent Oaks Lane, the construction traffic that will travel through our neighborhood, and one of the main concerns is with the safety of children waiting at the bus stops, children at play. We have numerous residents that walk that community daily, and one of the issues that has come up with many of the residents is why can an entrance not be added off of Harvey Road directly? Per the site plan, the intent is to create an HOA. The Oak subdivision currently has a HOA. Now that a new HOA will be created, will there be 2 competing HOAs within one stretch of road? How does the current HOA get involved with the design of the homes that are going to be built? Will they match the existing home styles that are there currently? And when if that is not going to be allowed, can a temporary construction access be available through Harvey Road?
Okay, thank you for your comments. I don't think we can remark on the HOA, but I think Mr. Davis could maybe speak to some of those other questions.
Yeah, Scott Davis, P.O. Box 11315, Knoxville 37939. I appreciate y'all's time. As y'all can see, closer to Harvey Road, there's a blue line stream there. To cross that blue line stream, even with a temporary drive, is difficult and challenging per T-deck. It's an existing stub-out road through the subdivision, and I did actually talk to the HOA president, and we've agreed that because we'll be using their entrance, their maintenance, their upkeep on that we would agree to pay the HOA dues as part of the subdivision development for that section that is accessing the existing entrance, because if we're using their entrance, we're benefiting from the landscaping, the new home should help pay for that. So we've agreed to do that with the new homes. In addition, you know, I think, I can't remember how many total, but it's an existing county stub-out road, and we talk about connectivity, and I probably argue sometimes for and against the stub-out roads, but in this particular case, it's a existing stub-out road that we're coming off of, and I respectfully request y'all approve with the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody want to talk? Chair will entertain a motion. Commissioner Biggs.
Yeah, motion to approve per staff's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, on motion number one, under the alternative design standards, Commissioner Biggs has made a motion to approve the alternative design standard based on justification provided by the applicant and recommendation of Knox County Engineering, Department of Engineering and Public Works. And it was seconded by, was that Vice Chair Huber? Is that right? Seconded by Vice Chair Huber. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion on motion number two.
Motion to approve per staff's recommendation.
All right, we have a motion to approve the concept plan subject to the 10 noted conditions by Commissioner Biggs, seconded by Commissioner Browning. Seeing no lights, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion on the development plan.
Motion to approve the development plan per staff's recommendation.
All right. We have a motion to approve the development plan for up to 26 detached residential lots, subject to the one noted condition by Commissioner Biggs, seconded by Vice Chair Huber. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time and your service. Thank you.
Agenda item 25, applicant Barnes Capital Management LLC, location north side of Old Middlebrook Pike, south side of Middlebrook Pike, west of North Gallagher View Road, 2.1 acres. Zoning is planned residential with conditions up to 9 dwelling units per acre. Existing land use, single-family residential. Proposed use, 18-unit townhouse development. This will require one motion. Staff recommendation, approve the development plan for a town home development with 18 units and a 15-foot peripheral boundary reduction along the northern property line as shown on the plan, subject to the 8 noted conditions. Is the applicant present? Do we have opposition? I'll toss it to commission. Do we have anybody virtual? No? Okay. Chair will entertain a motion, or staff may want to comment, or
I'll make a motion to approve the development plan for a townhome development with 18 units and a 15-foot peripheral boundary reduction along the northern property line as shown on the plan, subject to the 8 listed conditions.
we have a motion by Commissioner Barger, seconded by Commissioner Anderson. Seeing no other lights, and that is to approve per staff recommendation. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 37, applicant Mark and Emily Campen, location southwest side of Fenwood Drive, northwest side of Montrose Road, 4.88 acres. Present zoning RN1 Hillside Protection Overlay. Zoning requested RN2 Hillside Protection Overlay. Existing land use, rural residential. This will require one motion. Staff recommendation is to deny the RN2 district because it does not meet the criteria for rezoning. The Hillside Protection Overlay would be retained. I see the applicant before us.
I'm here.
If you would please state your name and address, please.
Can I defer to the opposition?
You may. Do we have opposition? Okay. Ms. Malone, would you like to speak?
Yes, I would. Thank you so much. Carlene Malone, 6051 Fountain Road, speaking for Fountain City Town Hall. We ask that you deny the request consistent with the staff recommendation, which is to deny. The staff makes clear that the request to rezone this 4.88 acre parcel from RN1 to RN2 meets none of the conditions that must be met in order to rezone, and that's a problem. In considering why the request does not meet the conditions for rezoning, the staff report notes the following. There have been no changes in this area for decades. The surrounding property is zoned EN and RN1. Most of the lots surrounding the property exceed the minimum lot size for RN1. That includes 2 lots that contain duplexes across the street, but those lots are 18,000 square feet each. The staff goes on to say, allowing the reduced RN2 minimum lot size on such a large parcel, almost 5 acres, could result in development out of character with the neighborhood. There are no developments or residential amenities nearby that warrant more intensive zoning. The roads that access the parcel are narrow, winding residential streets, so traffic congestion and sight distance becomes a problem in more intense zoning. The property does not have access to sidewalks, public schools, transit, or commercial amenities that support residential rezoning. The property is part of a wooded stream bed corridor that connects to undisturbed forest along Black Oak Ridge to the north. The property is within the HB district and contains undisturbed slopes exceeding 40%. More intense residential zoning could have adverse impacts on the surrounding environment. The rezoning conflicts with the general plan, development policies 7.2, 7.5 of the general plan, which deal with the protection of water resources, natural drainage systems associated with floodways and floodplains. To be clear, the uses allowed in RN1 are the same uses allowed in RN2. That includes duplexes as a special use. The difference between the 2 zoning districts are the dimensional standards: lot size, street frontage. The applicant says he plans to build a duplex in a single-family detached home on this 4.88 acre site. That requires a total of 25,000 square feet in RN1, excuse me, and 15,000 square feet in RN2, a difference of 10,000 square feet. The 4.88 acre parcel is about 220,000 square feet. So even if a third lot is created to accommodate the home that already exists there, creating a lot for a duplex in a single-family dwelling in RN1 certainly could be accommodated by 200,000 square feet of lot area. And one of the things that happened during our board meeting when we were talking with Mr. Campen was that Mr. Campen showed us a handwritten, hand-drawn schematic of the lot and said he would have to extend one of his proposed lots 50 feet back, which would begin approaching the slope and the trees. And we pointed out to him that just because a lot line goes back to the slope and the trees doesn't mean you have to take down a tree or level the slope. There are a lot of parcels in the city of Knoxville where houses are built and the far back lot, area of the lot, contains a slope and forest. So I guess we just don't get it. But indeed, if the dimensional standards are in fact what's driving the rezoning, the solution is not to rezone. The solution is to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is empowered and created for the express purpose of providing relief when the strict dimensional standards of the zoning ordinance cannot be met. The solution is not to rezone a parcel and open up all manner of problems. The BZA is the reasonable path and provides the solution.
Ms. Malone, if you could wrap up, please.
Yes, sir, I shall. The applicant also mentioned the possibility of exploring a conservation easement in the future. That is a private arrangement. The public has nothing to do with it. In keeping with RN1 and HP overlay, that is the best use of this property. As you know, zoning runs with the land, not with the owner. In the city of Knoxville, you cannot condition the zoning. The proposals described by the applicant are not binding in any way. If rezoned to RN2, this owner and future owners will have all of the uses and and setbacks permitted in the RN2 zoning. We understand that RN1 and RN2 are both allowed in the land use category of low-density residential, but let me remind you that page 43 of the one-year plan states the following.
Ms.
Quote-
Malone, you're out of time. Mr. Campen, would you like to speak?
Yes, please. Mark Campen, 1429 South Courtney Oak Lane, Knoxville, 37938. Could you pull up the applicant correspondence, whoever's controlling, that I submitted some images? I don't know if you can do that. Yeah, I submitted some images just while I'm talking. You can look at it. I would defend this rezoning request meets criteria on these reasons. RN2 is compatible as there are many other properties scattered throughout the nearby neighborhood zoned RN2, including duplexes. The need for infill housing is unquestionable. This is smart growth that adds a few more dwellings in the city. The City of Knoxville administration, specifically housing and neighborhood development, has been very supportive of new housing being built in the city. RN2 allows smaller lot size, resulting in less impact to the forest. We purchased the property to, in part, protect the natural resources, the forest, the creek, the spring, and the plants and animals that live there. I am no developer, but it appears to me the topography, the slope protection, the floodplain, the creek, the sewer main that run the length of the property will drastically limit any future development potential, which there are no plans for other than what you see today. We'll gladly look into the possibility and feasibility of a conservation easement. We began this process pre-application in mid-April of this year. The RN2 zoning emerged as a potential option. We communicated with planning staff for more than 4 months. It was not until September 3rd, last Tuesday, 9 days before this meeting, there was an issue. It was the first time I had any inclination that our request was not going to be supported by planning staff. I encourage you to support this modest, low-density zoning. Thank you for your consideration. As you can see there, what it showed, our concept and ideas are. It's almost, I think, 40% slope on the south side of the property. And what Ms. Malone alluded to is, yes, I wanted to stay in line with the existing lot lines on the 2 lots, single-family lots to the north, right there, and just run that property line straight across. And if we were to survey off the existing old farmhouse there, we would further protect, even going back into the woods and the floodplain 50 more feet. We had an interest in preserving this land, not overdeveloping it. And honestly, some of you all who are more experienced in development can allude to the fact that it would be very challenging with everything that you see there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Campen. Commission? Commissioner Adams.
I just want to state to the applicant, since you said you're not a developer, and so I just want to clarify, one of the things that the opposition stated is weighing heavily on my mind, which is the zoning goes with the land. It doesn't go with the applicant that's standing in front of us today. So even though you've shared plans, we're not supposed to really consider those, because once we rezone a parcel of property, someone can do whatever they want. You might disappear and someone else has that and has different intentions. So that's something that's weighing heavily on my mind. Plus the just the staff report really detailing how the neighborhood has worked to try and protect this property. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we support staff's recommendation to deny this rezoning.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Adams to deny per staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Midas. Do we have any other?
I'd just like to make a comment. With the other RN2 lots in this area, I know they're not adjoining and they're not close, but they're also very small lots. This is a substantially large lot. And if further development was to be made on this lot, it could be very impactful to the surrounding neighborhood.
Commissioner Browning.
I personally don't think it's developable. I mean, I'm looking at this thing. You got a sewer and a creek running through it. You got some topography there. I mean, all the applicant's wanting to do is have the flexibility to have a couple of lots that are a little smaller from a dimension standpoint. You know, I do see what you're talking about, Commissioner Midas. I mean, the RN2 in that area, I mean, it doesn't adjoin the property, but gosh, it's a pitching wedge away from it. I mean, there's a lot of RN2 in that area. You know, the applicant has expressed that, I mean, he really wants to preserve the property. He's talking about conservation easements. I mean, the neighborhood, I feel like, ought to be pretty happy with this guy trying to do what he's doing. I understand the zoning goes with the property and not the applicant, but I think a lot of that's alleviated just by the fact this thing, it's just a very difficult thing to develop. So, I mean, I'll be voting in favor of RN2.
Okay. Commissioner Gill.
Yes, thank you. I've been on record before not supporting rezoning changes when there are other avenues for relief. I have to agree with Ms. Malone that if the primary issue here is that the dimensional standards are not conducive to the property and that they needs to be adjusted in order to make those lot lines possible, we do have a board that's essentially designed to take that into account, and that relief is provided on that individualized basis. It's not attached to the zoning forever. It is based on what somebody would like to do. In my mind, using the sledgehammer to change the outcome of this when we're trying to get something developed and that is now attached forever to the land, pending or barring somebody else coming back to commission to downzone it, is kind of the wrong way of going about it. So we have this zoning, it's in place. That zoning is already in place, and if the intention is to develop a couple of more small properties in this land and they need to adjust the lot lines to fit with that existing topography, that's what BZA is designed to do. That is an existing hardship, and they're able to give those variances as needed in this situation. I can't support a rezoning to potentially change this land use forevermore based on a couple of small conditions that need to be adjusted for this particular owner.
Thank you, Commissioner Gill. Commissioner Biggs.
Yeah, I guess two questions. You know, one kind of following off of Commissioner Browning's, commentary. I agree the subject property is only 300 feet by my measurement from, existing RN2, which is pretty close, I'd say. I'd also, and admittedly haven't been out there in person, but it appears that the subject property is more kind of physically connected to that side of the neighborhood and not the established neighborhood section. It's, down the steep slope and kind of primarily on the right side of the creek, if you will. So, to me, just visually, it appears more connected with the side that has RN2 zoning close by than the established neighborhood. So I kind of be curious to get staff's thoughts on why you felt RN2 was inappropriate given the close proximity and sort of some of the geographic ties to that section.
Ms. Porcher, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. So if you could scroll out just a little bit. So when we were looking at it, and there is RN2 close by, but there are more located on the grid-like streets. So there's some in that area that's shown on the screen right now. And then there's another pocket of it to the southeast a little bit. And so you can see they're very straight streets, grid-like streets. They have alleys servicing them. It's just kind of a different character in that part of the neighborhood than this on the curve that it has on the subject property, particularly with the blue line streams and the slopes. So that's the reason.
And then I guess second question, following Commissioner Gill's commentary, what were staff's thoughts on like the Board of Zoning Appeals being the maybe more appropriate avenue for relief for specific, concerns that were raised by the would-be developer?
Sure. So the BZA requires a hardship that's not based on financial reasons. It's typically got to be based on something that's unique to the property that's not shared by other people in the neighborhood. So topography like sinkholes or severe slopes, streams, that sort of thing. So this particular piece of property is kind of geared towards being able to provide that sort of proof. You know, I did have our GIS staff do a stream buffer along the Blue Line stream and then measured the area of the property that's in front of it between the street. It's not in the packet. I just had her do it today based on some of the public comments. But I was just kind of curious to see like how much square footage was in there. And so on the northeast corner, from the north end of the stream buffer to the street, there's about 37,000 square feet. So it just is based on where you put the property lines. So if you cut across it and make a rectangle like what the applicant's sketch is, that's kind of limiting it. So you get close to 15,000 square feet, but not quite. If you back it up a little bit or even take some of that, where it doglegs, take some of that land, you could easily get the square footage and not require the variance. The property to the, I guess, the southeast side, that one probably would require a variance based on what I saw from the sketch.
Commissioner Higgins.
I've got some comments and also some questions, so I'll try to be quick. But first of all, I would say we should try to never assume that BZA is a possible route, just because the hardship argument is such a complex issue that it's better. I think that the way Tennessee has Board of Zoning Appeals set up, variances are very difficult. So I'd never want to assume that that's an alternative scenario. But then, so my first question is for staff with the hillside protection here. If this, let's say it was zoned RN2 and then sold, and someone came in and wanted to subdivide it and max it out, which I agree would be incredibly difficult. I know that hillside protection doesn't typically apply with single family, but if you're subdividing it, does it come into play in that situation?
It does. So whenever you are subdividing a lot, even if it is previously disturbed, that subdivision kind of creates a new lot, and then it would kick in, but only for the part of the property that's actually within the HP. So if the development was kept out of it, then the HP regulations would not kick in, even though the property does have HP on it, if that makes sense.
Okay. And then for the applicant, I'm curious if the plan is to just add I'm trying to get back to that attachment. The desire is to just add a duplex and a single family, right?
Correct.
What about what is it with the underlying zoning, the current zoning that prohibits that?
It's just really what it boils down to, I think, is the footprint of the lot. I'm trying to protect more of the resource than not by having a 10,000 square foot minimum instead of a 15,000 square foot minimum. So yes, a duplex is allowed under special use with both of those zones. I just wonder if we were to survey off the existing home as well, then we can still run that 100-foot deep lots across the backside of that, stay out of the drainage easement and the sewer easements. There's actually a sewer lateral coming from the existing home going to the east, to the west from the home, the corner of the home right there. Not taking that property line over that lateral. We had to install that when we renovated the home. So it's just having a smaller footprint is really the desire.
But if there's no, the structure could still have the same size footprint. It's just the
property itself.
Right?
Yeah, and no matter what we do, we're not planning to sell anything in the near future or long future, for that matter. It would just, let's say we did, or let's say we died and our kids sold it somewhere down the road, it would not allow future owners to encroach further into the floodplain in the forest either. Even just keeping not fescue and lawn, I mean, just having that tree canopy protecting what's there along the riparian zone, that's really the interest.
Okay. I do agree that this would be really very, very difficult to develop much much at all, and despite the size, because, you know, if you take 4.88 acres, divide that by 10,000 or 5,000 square feet, it's like, oh my gosh, that's 20 to 40 units. That in theory is a lot, but with the hillside protection, with the slope, I think it would be very, very difficult to actually max it out like that. That said, I do think that the applicant can accomplish what they want with the current zoning, and even through the use of an easement or something on that, if you do let's say the duplex, it may be a deeper lot, but you could put a protection easement on the back of that subdivision of parcel. And I'll also add now that if this comes back with a duplex, I think I would be very quick to support that. So I have a feeling that it may not, you might not get the desired outcome today, but I do think that what you want to do is possible with what you've got. Thanks.
Commissioner Overton.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely see both sides on this one. I think I just wanted to point out that we definitely considered the applicant before us in rezonings. We literally just rezoned with conditions because Scott Davis told us there was going to be 5 driveways. And I know that we can't condition zoning in the city, but in the past, I mean, we've, approved rezonings because we said, well, this person intends to do this, and they've, got all these reasons. And so I don't think that that is a basis that we say, well, it runs with the land, because I agree that it runs with the land and it should, and that's kind of where I base a lot of my thinking. But yeah, I see both sides here. I think, I think I agree with Commissioner Higgins here because, he's an architect, so he knows a lot more than me about it. But I think that if your lot size, you can still put a smaller unit on a bigger lot. It's not necessarily, I don't know if that's oversimplifying it, but that's just how I think about it. Like your building can be the same versus your lot size, and I think there's creative options here. So, but I just wanted to say that I think, we can't have it both ways.
Thank you. Seeing no other lights, let's see now. Let's get back to the motion. We have a motion to deny by Commissioner Adams, seconded by Commissioner Midas. Any other questions, concerns? All in favor to deny, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Can we get those no's? Can we get give us 1, 2, 3. What we got? 3, 4.
Put your hand high.
Let's call the roll. Let's call the roll.
Commissioner Huber? No. Commissioner Browning?
No.
Commissioner Levinson? Yes. Commissioner Boyer?
No.
Commissioner Barger? No. Commissioner Overton? Commissioner Perez? Yes. Commissioner Anderson? Yes. Commissioner Higgins? No. Commissioner Biggs? Yes. Commissioner Gill? Yes. Commissioner Midas? Yes. Commissioner Adams? Yes. Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
All right, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 9 yes, 5 no.
All right. Motion passes.
Thank you. 45.
Thank you.
That should be our last one. And you do have opposition, sir. And you may have some remote folks, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. Next is agenda item number 45, applicant Damon Falconeer, location northwest side of Cedar Lane, southwest side of Pinecrest Road, 2.74 acres. Zoning is RN1. Existing land use is public, quasi-public land, church. Proposed use, expansion of a place of worship. This will require one motion. Staff recommendation, approve the request to expand a place of worship with an approximate 6,300 square foot structure, subject to the 2 noted conditions. All right. Is the applicant present? All right, do we have opposition? Any opposition? Do we have some remotely? Well, I think we've got a couple remotely. All right, would you like to proceed or defer to the opposition? Okay.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, my name's Chad. Am I speaking first, or do you want to do
Yes,
Susan?
please.
Okay,
do.
great.
If you
Okay, thank you.
give your name and address, please.
Sure. My name's Chad Melton, and I live at 5321 Pinecrest Road, and this is the property that's adjacently north of the Life Church property. That's me right there where you're pointing. And so I've got a couple of concerns about this augmentation of their facility. So first of all, I would like to request a traffic study to investigate the impact of traffic on Pinecrest and Cedar Lane. For those of you who don't know this area, Pinecrest is one of the main access points to Sturchie Elementary that has about 400 students and faculty a day that are traveling up and down this road, which makes it already somewhat troublesome to get in and out of the neighborhood during certain times of the day. And they're projected 198 new cars per day. I would hypothesize that would severely impact our street. So that's number one. I would like a traffic study if possible. So number two, just if you look north of their building, there is a large parking lot, and they're suggesting building an additional parking lot that's a little closer to our lot. And so the church faculty may not be privy to the fact that in the evening times, we get a lot of visitors on foot to that parking lot, as well as cars who are doing who knows what. And we park our cars on the south side of our house as well, that's closest to that lot. So it's a little concerning for us that parking lot that's open to the public 24/7 will be unmonitored and a little bit closer to where our driveway is. You can see right here on that the southport, those trees. I guess third, I would like to mention is we've had some concerning events with their property management. So if you look at this border of trees that's on the east side here, there's about 20 trees that are there in a drainage ditch that are following that's really not maintained by the church at all. Most of those trees I counted today are covered with ivy that is going to eventually cause those trees to die. I had a few of those in my yard that were, I think one I had to cut and one I just pushed over because it had died from the ivy. And I'd reached out to the church before mentioning this to know response back from them. So I feel like an expansion of this that will continue to be negligent and can affect power lines as well as things that border my yard. I think that's the majority of what I want to say today. I'll defer to Susan for the rest.
Thank you. Do we have someone else?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Please give your
my name,
address.
yes, my name is Susan McHugh. I own the property at 5329 Pinecrest Road, which is directly next to that one right there. It's the brick colonial. We have quite a large lot. We're one of the oldest houses on this whole Pinecrest Road. I have similar concerns to that Chad does. I'll address the question of the water runoff first. We are on a downslope of a very hilly road, Pinecrest Road, which is quite narrow, and the properties are quite large. Now, the problems that we are currently having on Pinecrest Road is because we're on the downslope, there is a ton of water runoff. Of course, you can't tell now because we're in a drought, but when there are heavy rains, not only does the back of that property, the church property that borders my neighbor Chad, flood, also the two properties that back from Cedar Heights and one from Cedar Lane. And it's that corner, that kind of area between those properties will flood to the point where it's more than ankle deep when there's heavy water. And we see it on our property when our neighbors that are north of us when it rains really heavily, they have a retaining wall where their driveway starts, and the water has broken through that retaining wall to flood into an area that I call our pit, which has a lot of trees and greenery. It's very deep, and it absorbs a lot of that runoff, and that's where the water runs right into that pit. But because it's at the end of a downslope on Pinecrest Road, that whole area it tends to flood in the back there, and the water really pours down across our property. The the so that's a big concern because it's, there's not been any new structures on this area of Pinecrest. My bigger concerns or more pressing concerns, outside of that are the fact that Cedar Lane is a hugely trafficked street. It runs between Clinton Highway and Broadway. And you have a freeway entrance and exit right up there on Merchants Road. People travel constantly on Cedar Lane to get from Broadway or to get to Clinton Highway or to get to the freeway on-ramp. Right up at the corner where Cedar Lane turns into Merchants, we have railroad tracks, we have a gas station, and then you start to have the more, the storefronts and the restaurants and things. That we've got two huge churches, right there. We've got, there's so much traffic on Cedar Lane. The only way the residents of Pinecrest Road, which is blocked, to get to their homes without having to go all the way around and wind through the neighborhood to avoid Cedar Lane is to turn on to Pinecrest from Cedar Lane.
Ma'am,
Now,
if you could wrap up your comments, please. We're out of time.
The building expansion that is going to more than quadruple the amount of people who can use that property. There are courtyards, there's open air patio with big garage doors. The property is the whole new building, so it's more than just an expansion of the existing building. And the amount of traffic and people on and off that property is not going to be, there's no conditions on it, there's no restriction of when that property can be full to capacity. This has not been looked at as far as the impact on the residents in this neighborhood. And I'm firmly in opposition to this. There's been very little information about this and the need for this huge expansion right there on the corner. There's like I said, I mean, just the traffic and the amounts of people that
Thank
can
you
be
for
in
your
and off
comments,
that
ma'am.
property.
Mr. Falconer, would you like to speak?
Thank you guys for being here so late, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. This particular building and church is dear to my heart. I actually grew up and went to Starkey School, and I actually was Mama Cow. Everybody know who Paul Cow is. Those of you on the would know who Paul Cow. Mama Cow was my caretaker from first grade to fifth grade. So it's kind of fun to actually work on a building 60 years later. Now you can do the math. I started when I was 5. And to actually be able to be a part of a church. When I was there, the left wing was just started in 1964. And this church struggled for many, many years under several different pastors. And now they have a pastor that I want to introduce is Dr. Phil Nordstrom. And it's really impacting the community. They have a huge outreach with Emerald Youth Foundation. And I have a representative here, so I don't want to take too much time. I want to give them as much time as they can. I'll have Dr. Phil come first.
All right.
Thank you all, and I also want to thank the neighbors who spoke. I had a productive conversation with Susan the other day, I thought, and I really appreciate their concerns. Thank you in advance to the members of the Planning Commission for considering our special use request.
Doctor, if you could give us your name and address, please.
I'm sorry, my name is Philip Nordstrom, 5046 Ridgemont Drive, 37918. I've been the pastor of Life Church for 12 years. Our present building was erected in 1964 by Pastor Paul Cowell. Date that's dear to me is the year I was born. He's my wife's uncle. The building is U-shaped because Paul envisioned the day the church would need a larger auditorium in the space created by the U. Next year, we hope to do just that. In fact, our campaign is called Fill in the U with U and, the letter U. Paul eventually retired to found Whitestone Country Inn in Roane County. The next pastor, Morris Bagwell, pastored 19 years and died after a grueling battle with mesothelioma. The church struggled after his death and considered closing its doors. I was asked to relaunch the church in 2012. We're now at capacity in 2 services and want to finally bring our founder, Paul Cowell's dream to fruition. There's 3 reasons we're asking you to allow us to expand our auditorium. The first is to make room. Our parking lot is full on Sundays, and our tiny auditorium is full. Our maximum capacity is about 80 people right now of our present auditorium. It was not built to accommodate a flourishing congregation. We need to make room for people of all races who are coming to experience a life-giving church. We need to make room for the Spanish-speaking people who are both learning English and hearing the services translated into their native tongue. We need to make room for the underserved in our neighborhood who are coming from both Sturkey Elementary and Inskip Elementary to our after-school leadership program. They are daily receiving love, mentoring, fun, and experiencing things like camps, retreats, swimming lessons, and sports activities. I don't know if you know it, one of the top reasons underserved people die is from drowning. And so all of these kids in our neighborhood are getting free swimming lessons. We believe we are helping to shape the lives of the future leaders of our community. The second reason we need to build is our belief that we are commanded to love our neighbors and love our neighborhood. We are not the private property keep out kind of church. We are the our property is your property kind of neighbors. Mi casa, su casa. Our neighbors use our parking lot to park their extra cars. They use our pavilion, all for free, and we've designed our new building with great recreational spaces, not just for us, but for the neighborhood to use without having to belong to our church. As we were growing, we had the opportunity to move out of this neighborhood to larger pieces of property. However, we've been committed to this neighborhood for 60 years. We want to be the kind of church that the neighbors, the neighborhood, and the city would miss if we ever moved out. And that would be our only option if we couldn't expand. Finally, our present facilities look unfinished due to the original design of Paul Cowell to later on finish it. A lot of people don't know that we're actually a church because of the shape of the building. The future building design is beautiful, and we believe it will be value added to the neighborhood. Sorry about the ivy on the trees, and we'll try to address that. That is the first I'd heard of that or noticed that, and my bad. We intentionally are building out front so that the parking and the traffic will be away from Cedar Lane. We have no desire to be a mega church. We have always been and always will be a neighborhood church. The capacity for our new facility is 300, which is modest compared to the other churches that are nestled in the neighborhoods around Cedar Lane. Sunday mornings are one of the least traffic times on Cedar Lane. We do not feel we will create hardship to the neighborhood. We are not presently. If you know how, I don't know how people go to your church, but in our church, they leak in slowly and they leave slowly because people hang around after church, and it's not like the UT game where everyone rushes out at the end. Our congregation has already made great sacrifices financially to see this dream come to fruition. Thank you for listening. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and I just thank you for your kind consideration.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
that
Wait,
we-
we may have someone else signed up. Do we have?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
I'll give you 1 minute.
Yeah, that's all I need. I'm Denise Johnson. I am the program director for Emerald Youth at Life Church. This community has a real need for services that service the kids as well as the Hispanic community. Currently, Sturkey and Inskip barely have enough translators as it is. And so with the families, the Hispanic families that are coming to our church, our hope is that when we expand the space, we'll have that space to be able to offer English services. Our kids, right now, we have a waiting list all year round. For our kids aftercare, we can technically hold 30 kids, but we need a lot more space to be able to expand for our middle school program. And that's why I'm behind this building fund.
Thank you. Commissioner Levinson?
I'd like to make a motion, and thank you for what you do. I make a motion to approve the request to expand the place of worship with approximately 6,300 square foot structure, subject to 2 conditions, meeting all applicable requirements of the City of Knoxville zoning ordinance, including but not limited to Article 10.3T, mechanical equipment, Article 11, off-street parking, and Article whatever, landscape, meeting all applicable requirements of the City of Knoxville Engineering Department, including but not limited to platting the property to consolidate the lots.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Levinson, seconded by Commissioner Higgins, to approve the request to expand the place of worship per staff recommendation. Do we have, okay, Commissioner Adams.
I just have one question or two to address the concerns that the opposition raised about the first person that spoke talked about the parking and security concerns and that sort of thing. But this proposal, this special use comes with a buffer there, just to confirm that, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that buffer, please?
Can I ask staff to just explain that buffer a little bit more?
Sure. The residential, the landscaping section of the zoning ordinance requires a landscape buffer when in a non-residential use is in a residential zone district, and that's around the border of the property. It's a type A landscape screen. I don't have the information directly in front of me. I could pull it up if needed, but it includes trees and shrubs, and they can use the existing trees that are there to count towards that. They have to document those trees and make sure that they meet the standards. But the parking lot itself has some minimal landscaping required as well, but the buffer itself would be along the property lines. So basically where the existing trees are, and then also where the trees are not along the adjacent property lines.
Right. So I think where that first voice of opposition was concerned about, there would be a Class A buffer there.
Correct.
Right. Okay. And the only other thing, just to comment about this special use and religious facility, in terms of the hours of operation and such, it seems like the intense times are going to be not causing more problems on the roads. I feel like that was a comment that the applicant made that I just wanted to add to my thinking.
See no other lights. We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
That's it.
Any other items that commission would like to discuss? That's it for our agenda. If not, we are adjourned.